Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Parents, athletes, and families, it's great to see a nice turnout on a cold evening. Tonight's event is part of Prairie Rose's Heart and Home parenting series, a series of parent talks that are focused on supporting the whole child, heart, mind, and home. And we're grateful to be able to offer this evening thanks to funding from Redcliffe Family and Community Support Services. The title of tonight's presentation is Under Pressure, a Parent's Role in Athlete Success. Not that presentation, that's coming. That's a small piece of the presentation. With an informal subtitle that really gets to the heart of it, how parents can make things better or worse when players feel the heat. If you're a parent who's been shivering and shouting in the arena day in and day out, this conversation's for you. But if you're an athlete here tonight, this conversation could be good for you too. When the pressure builds on the ice before an important penalty shot or in the locker room before a deciding playoff game, what are some things you can do to best deal with that pressure, reduce it, or use it to your advantage? We're going to hear some thoughts on pressure from some of Medicine Hat's finest athletes in a moment, but first, we'll begin with a brief presentation from sports psychologist Hendrie Weisinger, who will help us think about the parent's role in athletic pressure. That will be followed by our headliners, a panel discussion moderated by Medicine Hat Tigers head coach Willie Desjardins, featuring Tigers players and WHL champions Ethan Newtons, Schaefer Gordon Carroll, and Josh Van Mulligan, who will share their lived experience of pressure, expectations, and what truly helped them as young athletes. Our hope tonight, of course, is not parental perfection. No parent's going to ever do it 100% right. Our hope tonight is awareness, curiosity, and better conversations in the car on the way home from the rink. Thank you again for being here. Let's get started. Hendrie Weisinger has been a counseling social worker for nearly a quarter of a century, a statistic which she finds kind of hilarious. I can laugh too because I've been lucky enough to work alongside her for most of that time. In recent years, she's moved her focus into the arena of sports psychology, where she saw a need for a different kind of help. Please welcome my friend and colleague, Hendrie.
Hi, everybody. I'm old, so I need these glasses as well. And I don't need to hold this. Okay. So I'm going to chat with you tonight a little bit about that sideline paradox. And so when we think of physics, we think of a paradox as something that seems self-contradictory, but it can express some kind of possible truth. And so when we think of the sideline paradox as parents, it's this: our intense desire for our kids to succeed leads us to apply the kind of pressure that makes success nearly impossible. Professionally, I'm a provisional sports psychologist, and I spend my days helping youth athletes perform at their very best. But honestly, my other credentials are I'm a mom. I parent two young men in very different arenas right now. One of them is a university student playing junior football in Calgary. Unfortunately, he's in that no man's land of coming back from a season-long sidelined injury. My other son is on the journey to become a commercial pilot, and for there, that margin of error is really non-existent because it's about safety and survival. So I understand that white-knuckling feeling of watching our kids at high stakes. And so the sideline paradox occurs when our well-intentioned desire to help our kids suddenly triggers an actual threat response that makes that success nearly impossible. Brené Brown talks about vulnerability. She says it's not about winning or losing, it's about showing up when we can't control the outcome. And on the sidelines, we as parents are really at our most vulnerable. When my son was sidelined for this year, I felt that scarcity that Brown talks about, the fear that he was falling behind, that his playing window was closing. And when we feel vulnerable, we armor up. For parents, that armor is often more control. We criticize, we overschedule, and we manage more. But as we'll see here, our armor doesn't protect our children, it often just disconnects us from them. So I wanted to start talking about that car ride that Greg mentioned. We've all been there. It's 9 p.m. The heater is blasting. The smell of gear is filling up our cars. And our kids are staring out the window. Yet we are vibrating with all the things that we want to say about that third period or that last quarter. It's that space where our deep love for our kids crashes into our deep fear for their future. We want them to be tough, to be successful, to be safe from the pain of failure. So we push, we pressure, we coach from the front seat. But here is a really important truth for us as sports parents. If we're not careful, we stop being their safe space and start being just another harsh critic in the stands, picking apart every performance. Today we're going to look at some of the research and data, that soulful kind, about how we can push our kids toward greatness without pushing them away from us. So first we're going to look at something called self-determination theory. So this is actually the engine of motivation. The research is clear. Happy, high-performing athletes aren't fueled by parent pressure. They're fueled by that internal, intrinsic motivation. And according to DC and Ryan, this comes from three things. For a child to be self-driven, we have to meet these three basic needs. The need for autonomy, where they feel like they're the author and the owner of their own story. Competence, not just being a good athlete or a good pilot or a good football player, but that feeling of getting better through their effort, that mastery. And lastly, relatedness, knowing that our love for them is not outcome dependent. It doesn't matter what their outcomes are. So you'll see me weave that throughout today. The next thing that I wanted to touch on is the different parenting styles that we often see as we move through all of the different ways that we show up in the world. So authoritative parenting, is that top right. And that's that kind of parent where it balances that need for high responsiveness with some high demand. It creates an environment where both the children and the parent receive warm and clear expectations. It's where we act as a consultant. And we act as, if you can see, a new metaphor that I came across recently was as a lighthouse parent. I'm sure we have heard all of the other names. The permissive parent is sometimes considered the fan. The uninvolved parent is considered a ghost. And the authoritarian parent is often considered a drill sergeant. So when we look at what parenting style tends to reach our children the best, it is usually that authoritative parenting style, that lighthouse. We see that kids that are raised in this kind of parenting environment have a stronger sense of self-esteem, they develop stronger relationships, and have more emotional control. In these households, parents aren't simply imposing rules, they're explaining the reasons behind their expectations, and they use those opportunities as teaching opportunities, and they're not really trying to dole out punishments. So lighthouse parenting, what that offers to our children is we are the stable force. We shine that light for them. We shine the light on the rocks that are around them, but we act as a guide. We're not there to give them every single direction on how to get safely to shore. We're just there to guide them and shed that light. And we let them navigate that on their own. So that's one of the things I want you to think about is how can we shift towards being more of a lighthouse parent and an authoritarian approach versus authoritative. Because we know that there's some consequences long-term of authoritarian, that drill sergeant kind of parenting. I often hear, well, my child was successful because I took on an authoritarian kind of parenting style. But what we know is that long-term, maybe short-term, they're going to achieve some outcomes. Initially, they might get some good grades at school, but long-term what we see is that these are the kids that have low self-esteem, they have higher rates of anxiety and depression, they have more emotional and behavioral problems. We actually see more cases of rebellion. They might initially appear obedient, but then later they're really bucking that authority figures in any kind of zones, whether it's at school or even with their parents. And we also see that kids raised in these kind of households have poorer decision making because they have just not had that capacity to make those decisions on their own and trust in their own decision making. So the neuroscience of pressure and why it backfires. Here's some tiny bit of brain science for you. So this comes from Stixrud and Johnson in a book called The Self-Driven Child. I tried to bring resources and options for you later if you want to learn a little bit more. So we know that the sense of control is the greatest buffer against stress. And when we act as a boss, an authoritarian kind of parent, controlling all of the things that are going on in our kids' world, we actually trigger a tiny part of our kid's brain called their amygdala. These two almond-shaped pieces just in behind here. And those are our fight, flight, our fear zones. And when that's triggered, it's a threat response. It's really hard for our kids to use their prefrontal cortex, which is their wise decision-making. And it's actually, when we're looking at athletes, where you can think about the next great play that you have to make. Remember the systems that your coach has talked about. When we're in our fear zones, we can't get there. But when we can use some different ways of reaching our kids, we're going to help them activate those parts of their brain. So our job is to keep their prefrontal cortex online. And we can do that by being a non-anxious presence with our kids. When the lighthouse is steady, our kids can think clearly. So it's that notion of being a thermostat, controlling the temperature around our kids versus the thermometer where we rise or fall based on what's also happening with our kids. So I want you to think back to that car ride. When we're in the car after some kind of intense game, usually we're all having a lot of feelings about what's going on. Our kids are staring out the window, they maybe don't really want to talk to us, and we have all those things that we want to say. But if we can start to shift to a 24-hour rule, or hours, let our kids' behavior be our guide, maybe that's going to be a more opportune time to have the conversation with our kids, where their amygdalas won't be so fired and their brains will actually be online, where they can have a discussion with us about successes that they had out on that shift or what they could have done differently in the third period. So if we can change our approach and be a non-anxious parent, our kids are going to notice. So another thing that we notice is in the burnout research. High parental pressure leads to burnout and kids leave sport. And one of the reasons that this is that when athletes feel that their parents' love is performance contingent, that means on achieving this win or getting that trophy or making that team, the game stops being play and it becomes work. Gold and his colleagues found that burned out athletes had significantly higher parental expectations and less input into their own lives. Dr. Jim Taylor calls that performance contingent self-esteem. Kids believe they're only as lovable as their last goal or their last exam. And that's an investment trap. And we're going to talk about that in a minute as well. So I have a couple transformations that I'm going to encourage that you try in your parenting with your kids. The first one is transformation 1, changing your body language and your level of warmth. And you can see that this relates to the self-determination concept of relatedness. So if the lighthouse is our metaphor, then our body language is that beam of light. In the upcoming Tigers panel, you're going to hear players talk about reading the room. And this isn't really just a figure of speech. It's a biological survival mechanism that we all have. Research shows that athletes are hyper-tuned to their parents' vibe. Before a player can focus on the complex play or a difficult landing, their brain performs a safety scan. They look to the stands or the bench to see if things are safe. If they see a parent pacing, a clenched jaw, heads buried in the hands after a mistake, hoods up, or parents leaving the stands, then their brain registers a threat. When the amygdala and that threat center fires, their prefrontal cortex, their thinking area, goes offline. And players really can't be as creative, resilient, or strategic when they're in that state of threat. So to manage this, we need to understand the difference between heart and head support. So head support is that tactical and technical thinking. It's the X and O's of a game. This is the coach's lane. The coaches study this. It's their job to provide that head support to our players. The heart support is that emotional side. It's that unconditional belief that says, I'm your safe place regardless of the scoreboard. When parents try to give head support, coaching from the car or critiquing from the sidelines or those calls back when players are on the road, the kids lose their heart support. They feel they have 2 coaches and 0 parents. So the strategy I encourage you to use is grounding yourself in a reset while you're watching. I talk about resets with my players all the time, and this is an encouraging you to have one as a parent as well. If you feel your jaw tighten, or you find yourself standing up to pace, or your arms are crossing, you're projecting a fight or flight kind of energy. And that often looks like judgment to a player from far away. What you need to do is try a physical cue for yourself. Sit back, relax your shoulders, and take a breath. Consciously choose a facial expression of calm curiosity. I actually had a student talk to me today about the RBF. Players don't need to see that in the stands, right? They need to see that calm expression of, it's just curiosity. How's my player doing? So by increasing your nonverbal warmth, you're not actually lowering your standards. You're providing that psychological safety that allows your player, your child, your student to reach those standards. So an interesting note too is that parental encouragement without that technical critique is the single biggest predictor of a child's long-term interest in their sport. So my next transformation that I'm going to encourage you to do is shifting your beam, your lighthouse beam, to achievement. And this relates to that other metric out of our 3 of competence. So we want to shift our beam to expect their best, not the best. This means focusing on the specific motivation for our player, my pilot. It's why they love the game, why they're choosing to do what they do, not the league rankings. Dr. Jim Taylor also encourages us to focus on success versus achievement. And achievement is where we want to put our beam of light. I know this seems like a really subtle difference, but success is really all of the external things. It's the trophies, it's the awards, it's the banners. And achievement is internal. Success is fragile, and achievement is mastery. So when my son was in rehab and success, any kind of playtime was months away, achievement was the discipline to do the really boring PT, sorry to my PT friends, exercises every day. We had to celebrate that process, the grit, the rehab. If it's a student, it's their study hours. And when we do that, we build confident achievers who own their journey. When it's success and it's external on those trophies, those stats, the social comparison, draft positions, that is outside of players' control for a lot of it, right? It's not 100% in their control. Achievement is 100% in our players' control. So most of the sports world is obsessed with success. It's the scoreboard, the points per game, the draft ranking. It happens in the lobby of the rink, in the lounges. Success is really fragile, and if you only celebrate that, you are a conditional light on your lighthouse. You only shine when the weather is good for your player. So if we can shift our beam towards achievement, it's focused on the internal things that our players can control. It's the mastery of a skill and development of the person. And that's a really important part for us. So I lived this in this dark season when my kid was working through injury. And if I'd only focused on success, you might have considered this entire year a failure. He actually never hit the field once. He was injured before the season started. He had no stats. He wasn't winning. And so if I had taken a success-driven approach, my light and his would have gone out. And he would have felt that darkness. Instead, we had to shift to an achievement mindset. Success was 6 months away. It's only begun now in the off season when he can start training again. Achievement is the discipline to wake up and go to training when it's boring and it's painful leg lifts and a cold gym and nobody else is watching. Achievement is the ownership he took of his own rehab and the emotional mastery it took to sit on the sidelines for an entire season and just make sure he was cheering on his teammates, and especially the ones that took his spot. So the takeaway for you for this one is, when you get in the car after your kid's next game, or when you're watching practice tomorrow, I want you to look for those unseen achievements. Don't praise the goal, praise the back check that nobody else noticed. In the case of my son pursuing his pilot exam, I'm not going to praise the past flight exam. I'm going to praise the grueling hours that I know that he's put into flights and studying for his test. When we celebrate achievement, we build those confident achievers, and that's going to help our kids. Transformation 3 is we want to act as a consultant, and this activates our players and our children's sense of autonomy. So we want to really shift ourselves to move from the boss to the consultant. To foster that self-driven child, they need to be responsible for the outcome. A consultant offers that expert advice, but leaves the decision and the ownership and the decision-making to their child. By acting as a consultant, we turn on that sense of control to them, which is a primary buffer against stress. Again, activating their own prefrontal cortex, helping with brain development and decision-making along the way. The consultant question, how can I help, is your best tool. I'm sure we've all been in those conversations where sometimes we just wanted someone to listen. We didn't need them to actually solve our problem. And so if we can offer that to our kids, it'll go a long way. Transformation number 4 is another really important one. Sport is an investment in character, and this builds that sense of relatedness. We really need to encourage a move from return on investment to relationship. In the world of high-level sports, or flight school, or university scholarships, the financial and emotional costs and the vast amount of time spent are staggering. Dr. Taylor warns the subtle danger of that investment trap, and I mentioned this a little bit before. When we spend like investors on our kids' sports or activities, we subconsciously start expecting a return on investment, and this turns our children into commodities. When they sense they are an investment, they develop that performance-contingent self-esteem and sense of love. They only feel as lovable as their last goal or win or the last exam they passed. Again, Gold says that the primary driver of athlete burnout is that contingency, self-esteem, and love. So the lighthouse shift helps us decouple the human value from their trophies. We transform our thinking. The money we spend isn't a down payment on a professional career or the hopes of a scholarship. It's an investment in their character. If they learn grit from a loss or accountability from a failed maneuver, the investment has actually already paid off. When you view sport as a laboratory for character rather than a financial stake, you protect your relationship with your child. You tell them, I'm investing in the person you're becoming, and that's a return I've received just by watching you grow. The last transformation I want you to encourage is the power of repair. Let's be really honest. And Greg mentioned this earlier. We all are going to mess up as parents. There's going to be the car rides home where you say too much. There will be the games where you watch your kids struggle and you feel your own feelings about what's going on and your own personal history of wanting to be the best, or your fear for their future, or your own competitive temperament is going to take the wheel. In those moments, you're going to stop being the lighthouse and you'll start acting like a space invading over-manager or a drill sergeant over-pressuring. But here is the research-backed truth. High-performance parenting isn't about being perfect. It's about being reliable. The repair is the most important transformation tonight. It's the process of resetting. When you blow it, don't just move on and hope they forget, because I'm sure we can all remember times that happened to us, and we don't forget. You model the very vulnerability we ask of our athletes. You sit them down, maybe the next day after those 24 hours has passed, and you say, hey, I want to circle back to that car ride yesterday. I let my own fears about what's going on for you get in the way. And I was anxious about the standings, and my fear for your season came out as a ton of criticism after your game. That wasn't fair to you. I'm sorry I got so intense. I'm resetting. I'm back in your corner. I'm here to be your head support, not your third or fourth coach. And that script is really powerful because it does three things. It de-escalates their threat response. Their amygdalas start to relax. It takes the weight off their shoulders. They realize they don't have to carry your anxiety. And it builds trust. A child who knows that their parent can admit a mistake feels a greater sense of self-control and safety. And you're proving to them that when the hockey season or the flight exam is done, your relationship with them is the most important thing in the arena. You're showing them that the light of the lighthouse doesn't go out just because the waves got really high and it just needs a quick lens clean to start fresh. So our job is not to make the path easy. We do need pressure. It's about how we do it. It's not to prevent the injury or the failed flight exam or the lost season at the end, they didn't win the championship. Our job is to be the person they want to come home to, regardless of the outcome. When we move from the boss to the consultant, when we celebrate achievement over success, and when we provide heart over head, we solve that sideline paradox. The sideline paradox is solved through connection. My sons don't need me to be their coach or their flight instructor. They need me to be their parent, the one who believes in their capacity to handle the hard things and guide them along the way. Thank you. We are now going to move to our Tigers panel. So Willie is going to come up and our Tigers are going to come up. And I know for our Tigers, one of the things that we've talked about is that even though they're here as individuals, they're also here as representatives of the hockey community. And they're going to speak to some of the experiences that they have heard all along their journey from lots of different players that they've had the pleasure of playing with. So next we have Willie and the Tigers. Thank you.
Thank you. That was really good. It's funny. No, it was. It's funny when you do things and sometimes you don't know why you do them, and it's really nice to get some structure so it makes some sense out of what you're doing. And I think you'll see examples of the things I'm talking about from what Janae said. So it's kind of like here's some examples and goes into place. So if you look at this, so for me, it's how do you develop your athlete, and I'll talk about this. And the first one is a picture of Oasis Weisblad, and it's how did he develop into the player he is, and it's all about development for me. Like how do you develop? And so my very first thing with Weisblad was when he was 14. We sent out our fitness things, and he sent in his fitness results. And they were by far the worst of all the players. They weren't even close. They were so bad. And I phoned him and I talked to him a little bit about it. And after I talked for about 5 minutes, he said, "Coach, you just don't understand." He says, "I just don't like training." And I said, "Oasis, that's kind of funny. I didn't like training either, and that's why I became a coach." And but that was the transformation from him being an athlete at that point to where he is now. And he's doing unbelievable. I think he's going to get a shot at the NHL one of these days. So he's been really good with it. So the next one, so coach or parent. And a coach is not a parent because a coach has to look after the whole team. So you can't always do what's best for an individual. But I believe a parent is a coach. Like I think, I can't see it all, so I have to go over a little bit. And I think what you're trying to do is make your child better and figure out do that. And for me, when I look at it, I don't think my parenting is so good. I don't know if my coaching's that good, but I know my parenting things is a little bit weak. And my wife's here, and she doesn't have to say anything, but she'll agree. So I remember the first time I came back from Japan, and my son was going to go on the ice, and he was about 4, maybe 3 or 4 at the time. And my wife said, he's a pretty good skater. I said, oh, great. So I get him all ready to go on the ice, and he's not a very good skater. He's pretty bad. And I said something, and then when he came off, I realized I put the skates on the wrong feet. That's not a very good start. But those skates are so small, so it's an easy enough thing to do. The second one I'll tell you about my parenting skills. So we come back from PA, we get back about 4 in the morning. This is 15 years ago. My daughter's going to train in Calgary. She's a high-end gymnast. She's going to train in Calgary. So I've got to take her into Calgary to train. So it's about 4 in the morning, about 4. So I sleep for half an hour. I get up and I drive her to Calgary, and I am so tired. I'm so tired. So I get to Calgary, and I just stop on the east side of Calgary. Her coach is going to meet me on that side, so I don't have to go through the city, because I have to get back to the team. So I stop. I go to sleep. I'm in the car. I go to sleep, and it's about 7:30, then 8 o'clock in the morning, and maybe 7:30, and rush hour traffic starting. My daughter's bouncing around the car, but I'm sleeping. The next thing I wake up, there's a SWAT team surrounding my car. They got the dogs, they got the mirrors underneath for bombs, they got everything. So they won't let me roll down the window. So finally they let me talk. They asked me her birthday, and I get that wrong too. So that I wasn't great on. I struggled on that. But I want to try to talk to you about the coaching part of being a parent. Some of the things that I found coaching that maybe you can use with your athletes when you go through. So, what's your North Star? How do you make your decisions? Like we have it with our team. What's our North Star? Our North Star, we want to win a championship. We want to sign pro contracts. We want guys to develop. And our third one is we want guys to be community leaders. So those are our 3 things. So, the one that got me into trouble when I was a coach, it was winner to develop. And when I was in Vancouver, that got me fired. Because you couldn't decide. Some people wanted us to win, some people wanted us to develop. I think as a parent, do you want to develop an NHL player, or do you want to develop good community leaders? And if you're strictly focused on the NHL player, you're forgetting so much, because that's such a hard thing to get to. And we'll talk about it later on with players. Like at a young age, you can't tell who's going to have a chance to play. You can't. So more of the folks, I think, is being a good community leader and doing that. So we had a Navy SEAL come in and talk to us, our group, and you'll see a picture of it. And all our guys are in the dressing room. They got their binders out and notepads, and they're taking notes on this speech. And they asked him, they said, what's your favorite weapon? What is your favorite weapon? And everybody thinks it's going to be some kind of a gun or whatever it is. And he says, my favorite weapon is a map. My favorite weapon is a map. And these guys will attest to that. They know it. And he goes, because if you have a map, you might be wrong, but you're not lost. Because if you have your map and you know where you're going, you can always adjust. If you don't know where you're going, you don't know what to do. So you got to figure out, am I developing a community leader here, or what am I developing? And that'll help you set your tone. The other thing that's really important with that is the curiosity, and how he says curiosity feeds it. And you get curiosity, you see it with my guys. What do they study? What do they read? How active are they searching to get better? So here's this guy talking.
My favorite weapon is a map. Because once I have a map, I have everything. I know where the bad guy will be. I know what to come in, what to bring, what to leave, how to get home. And if I have a map, the worst I'll ever be is wrong. But I won't be lost. And wrong and lost are different animals. I mean, I know you guys are young guys, but you already know this. You've already experienced this in some ways, right? I don't like being wrong and I don't like being lost, but I will take wrong over lost any day. Because if you're lost, any move could be wrong. You know, you go forward, back, left, right, up, down, that could all be wrong. But if you're wrong, it's just a matter of remembering it, remembering where you said you wanted to go, availing yourself to the wisdom of those who've been where you say you want to go, or those who are there now, and the camaraderie of those who want to get there as badly as you do. And then you just got to do the work, right?
So I think that's when you're in the car ride and you're going home. If you're trying to develop the NHL player, you're going to be pretty critical of what's happened. If you're trying to develop a community leader, I think that's where you go. And it's what steps do you do as you're on that path. So I met another guy when I was with the World Juniors, and he talked about who will succeed. He talked about who's going to succeed. And he said the story like when I was with Cleveland Browns, he was talking to the Cleveland Browns, he said, I can line them all up against the wall, and I can't tell which one will succeed. I don't know who will. I tell that to all the young players that come through, all of them. Because it's not the best player that's going to succeed, especially at a young age. That's not the one that's going to succeed. The one that's going to succeed is the one that has the dreams, the vision, the passion, and the confidence. Not the best player. And I'll go into it later on my guys that have gone on to achieve good things. But you can't tell that. The only thing that you can help your athlete with is to give them passion about the game and confidence on what they want to do. That's way more important than critiquing how they've played. The critiquing, that's good, but that's not going to get them where they need to go. So we have a 400 game club up on our wall. Guys that played 400 games in the NHL. I had coached 7 of them. And we have the Bantam draft that occurs when you're 14. In that Bantam draft, none of my guys were selected in the first 3 rounds that went on to play 400 games. I have guys that were picked first overall that played games in the NHL. They didn't play 400 though. But Schlemko got picked in the 4th round, probably about 68th. Then I had Helm and Russell that got picked in the 8th and 9th round, probably 160th plus. And then I have 4 guys that didn't even get drafted in the Western League draft that went on to play 400 games in the NHL. Lupo, Dorsett, MacArthur, and Ennis. So when they're 14, they weren't even the best player on their team. They weren't close. So why did they become players? Why could they do it? And this John Herdman, and you'll see the video after, he's speaking to us, and it's the Vancouver Canucks dressing room, and Herdman's talking to the Canucks. You'll see Trevor Linden sit there on the side, but he's speaking to our team. And he talks about vision, passion, and discipline. And it's like Janae talked about a little bit. Like if we're always on the discipline side, if we're always talking about your outcomes, what you're doing, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, your athlete's not going to enjoy it, they won't enjoy it, and you'll get really tired of doing it every time. It'll just ruin the relationship. So here's what Herdman talked about.
So look, it's serious stuff because people sense it. And great teams, you can sense it. You come into my culture, you'll sense it. You come into that women's national team up in Fort Tiers, you'll sense it. You'll feel the passion of that group. 1, for playing for their country, and 2, playing for each other. You'll see it. You'll feel it. And the reason why it's important, guys, is if you go back into the success literature, years upon years of successful teams and people, it's always been passion that's been the key ingredient. So if you want to read the books, it tells you, the success literature says there's 3 things. Passion's the first. Julius Caesar, Malcolm X, Mother Teresa, whoever you want to identify, you will have sensed and felt their passion that's made them successful. Because you know what passion does? Passion fuels a discipline that takes you beyond normal. And when your passion goes, trust us, your discipline goes. So when you felt your passion ebb for your sport, your discipline goes too. And that's the important thing. So where's your passion level at the minute? Because what I need for my team and my players is that they're enthusiastic about coming to work, they're passionate about what they're trying to achieve for this club, for themselves, for the teammates, and that drives a discipline. That takes you from normality to abnormality. You'll do the things normal people won't do. That's why you're where you are. But to stay where you are and push to the highest level, you've got to keep the discipline levels at the highest. So passion will fuel discipline, and discipline allows you to achieve vision, because that's the driver. And if you're visionless, then you've got a challenge. If there's no true north in your mind for this group of people, for yourself, for your family, then it's aimless. It's like what you're passionate about. What's your discipline driving you to?
So you have to fuel the vision and the passion. So we started usually 8 o'clock in the morning. Our workout guy comes in. Ethan, what time do you usually get there in the morning? 6:45 or 7. 6:45, 7. We don't start till 8. We did 6:45, 7. Why are you in at that time? Do the extra things because of the vision and the passion. You have the vision and the passion, it will give you the discipline to do so many things. So many things. But if it's no fun for your athlete, they're not going to have any desire. They won't have a vision. They'll lose the vision of where they want to go because it's no fun. And that will take it away because they won't have the discipline. If you don't have the discipline to train and do, these guys work harder, like they're so elite, and how hard they work and what they do. It's incredible what they go through. But they do it because they have a vision and they have a passion for what they do. And they love doing it. So, if you talk about Steph Curry, the thing he talks about in his video, it's a short video, he talks about success is a choice. Success is a choice. You decide what you want to do. And he talks about, do your habits of today match your dreams of tomorrow? And that doesn't happen at a young age. That starts happening around there, maybe 15, 16, 17, 18, even older. That's when you really start getting in that, because that's when your off-ice training and all that comes in. But he wasn't even recruited to a top university, and yet he went on to become one of the all-time greats.
Curry from deep. There's the record. He stands alone as the best three-point shooter in a single season in NBA history.
And the moral of that story is that success is not an accident. Success is actually a choice. And Stephen Curry is one of the best shooters on the planet today because he has made the choice to create great habits. And my question to you is, are the habits that you have today on par with the dreams that you have for tomorrow?
And you get the habits because you love doing what you're doing. If you hate doing what you're doing, you are going to burn out and you won't keep going. So when you see people doing the things you want them to do, your athlete, your job, you have to encourage it and reward it. It's important. I'll talk about that a little bit later on. At World Juniors, when I was down there, and then I saw one of these guys, we had an interaction with the Army, and one of the officers he just had all these medals on his chest, and I asked him, I said, sir, what do you do? And he said, I'm basically the leader of Task Force A guys, the Navy SEALs or whatever, for the Canadian Forces. And I said, well, how do you pick your men? How do you know who's going to be successful? Who do you want? He says, I pick guys that are athletic. All my guys are athletic. And he said, I pick guys that never quit. They never quit. I said, okay. And I have one other one. Since I talked to him, I always want guys that want to get better. When I look like athletes I'm going to recruit, I want guys that are curious and always want to get better. They always want to find a way for more. So that's really important to me when I look at the athletes I recruit. But how do you get a person, so he goes, like there's some athletes, I'll put them in a chokehold And there'll be 30 seconds from passing out, and they'll tap me on the arm and say, I'm done. And there'll be other guys, they'll go right under. They won't quit. They'll just go right under. So why does the one athlete tap out at 30 seconds when they have more? That's the question. That's the area of coaching, because you have to help your athlete find out there's more inside. If you solve all the problems for them, they'll never know that there's more inside. They'll never will. That's one of the hardest things at our level, my level, is I get guys with us, and throughout their whole career, their parents have solved the problems for them. So whenever they got in a tough situation, the parents stepped in and helped them out. So they never learned how to solve them. So they didn't have confidence. If you want people, when they're 30 seconds, how do they become, because the reason they tap out is because they're not sure. They've never been in that spot before where they can't breathe. They don't know what to do. Like, I'm not there. I don't know how to handle this. They don't know they can do it. So they tap out. Our job is to give them confidence that they can stay in it. That they have more inside. It's our job to make them believe. To work through it with them. So, you got to make them comfortable with being uncomfortable. You got to let them know it's okay if you're uncomfortable. It's okay that game didn't go the way you want. It's okay you made a mistake. That's okay. There's lots of time ahead. It's because they're unsure. But it's inside. There's so much more inside that we don't get to. The two biggest things that determine success usually are work ethic, confidence, and belief. So if you can install anything for me and my team, it's work ethic. If I can get us working hard, we've got a chance. If we talk about confidence and belief, if we believe in what we're doing, if we believe in our structure, where we're going, we have a chance to win. But it's that confidence and belief that lets you perform at the highest level and where you want to perform at. So this video is on Jimmy Valvano. This is a long time ago. It was March Madness, and he was a basketball coach, and he started out, he wasn't very good, he was at a bad college, and he kept trying to work on to win March Madness. His 30 for 30 is an unbelievable story if you ever listen to it. But he talks about the greatest gift my father ever gave me.
I got my first job. I said to my pop, I said, boy, it's great, Dad. And he said, what do you want to do? I said, we're going to win national championship. And he said, I'll be there. I said, it's hard to do that. He said, I'll be there. Right now, it took me 8 years of work before I even made the tournament. That was my dream to win. 8 years. First year I made him, coaching at Iona. I call up home, my dad, mom in New York. I said, we made it. We got a bid. So we celebrated the way Italians celebrate. We eat. You know, it was on a Sunday. We eat. All right? We started 2 o'clock. You finished midnight. Halftime about 6 o'clock. You know? My father calls me upstairs in his bedroom, which has never been in my father's bedroom, you know? And he calls you up and he says, there's a suitcase. Now, remember I told you where my family's from. My father's never left New York. My father thinks everything north of the George Washington Bridge is Canada, right? You understand that? Do you know what I'm saying? Oh, he got the suitcase. What's that for? He said, I'm going to be there when you win the national championship. My bags are packed. I said, Pop, it's hard. Well, you'll do it. We lost in the first round. The next year, same thing. We lost the second round. He said, you're Gainer. I moved to North Carolina. We made the tournament. I called him. It became a phrase, a catchphrase. My father said, my bags are packed for you. He was one of those people who, after I spoke to him, I always felt better than before. What was it? I didn't see him all the time, and I was traveling a lot, right? And then it hit me, what it was he gave me. I call it that. The gift my father gave me. And I think it's the strongest and most powerful gift I've ever received. The gift my father gave me every day of my life was he believed in me. My father believed in me. He believed in me when I failed. He's the one person who, when I didn't measure up, he'd look me in the eye and he'd say, you're going to make it. I know you are. My bags are packed. You're going to make it.
I think that's so powerful. I think that's out of all the things, I think with coaching, it's that belief. It's when things go bad. My guys never need me when things are good. They are so good, like they don't need me at all. The only time they need me is when things aren't good. Because when things are good, they're just rolling. When things aren't good, they need to figure out, well, what's going on. And that's when I've maybe played a small part. So, these are the last couple videos I got. So sometimes we ask our athletes to do unbelievably hard things. So there's Chris Tanev. You can see him blog a shot. If you ever seen Chris Tanev, he's got no teeth, but he's out now. And we'd sit on our power play, and he'd sit over on the side, and Ovechkin would be taking one-timers, and Tanev would be laying out blocking his shot. It's like, how could I ask him to do that? Like, that's so unfair. How could I ask him to go block those shots? And he must have thought I'm crazy for doing it. You look at Chris Russell, CHL Defenseman of the Year. He was really good offensively. He went to the NHL, and he had to change his game. He set a record for blocking shots. Well, all that talent with offense didn't get it to him. What got him was his character inside. His character, his confidence to take a chance and to do something else. And I know my athletes, I know these guys look at me someday and think, I'm not sure this guy's serious with some of the things he wants to do. Like, why are we doing this? So I show this video, and I think it's a pretty good video. How crazy is that duck to build a nest in the middle of that tree that high? But we do that for our kids. We do that. And we don't think about it because it's nothing. We can fly out of there. We've done it all our life. But they've never done stuff that we ask them to do. And how are they going to trust us to do that? Because we ask them all the time. Do you know how hard for these guys to go out? You got 5,000 or 4,000 people watching them, critiquing every move they make. It takes so much courage to go out and do that day after day, knowing that you can be bad, but having the belief you're going to be great. Having the belief it's going to be so much fun. But we set things up. We set people up all the time in these tough situations, and we wonder why they struggle with it. Well, why would those ducklings ever jump? Why would they ever jump? Like, they've never done it before. They certainly didn't want to. Like, you look down, they had no desire. But obviously they had some trust. The mother duck obviously gave them trust. That they believed that the mother duck said, you got to jump, then you got to jump. But that didn't happen over time. Or not all of a sudden. It happened over time. And you do that over time. And for sure you make mistakes. For sure you do. But it's not the mistake that counts. It's how you react to a mistake. It's what you do with the mistake. And there's so much more important than hockey players. Like our guys, hockey is not the most important thing. Family is far more important than hockey. We're just lucky to get to play a game. We like the game we get to play. So we're lucky to be able to do that. But I think if you want your athletes and that, they have to have trust in you. And it's your belief in them that will carry them. And they know that belief. They feel that belief. And it's not when they're good. The most time they need you is when things are bad, when they've had a bad day. That's what's really, really important. What do you need to succeed? Someone to believe. You got to love the grind, too. Like ours, there's a lot of grind in it. Like if every day our guys come in and they go, I have to go to the gym at 7:45 or 6:45 in the morning. They don't have to be there. They can be there at 8. But they come in at 6:45, 7. And they work out. They don't just come in and sit. They work out hard. But they do it because they love it. They've learned to love that and make them get better. And one story I got asked, the guy asked me 3 years ago, he goes, my wife is in the audience, she's not going to like my story, but he asked me, what was your hardest thing? What was your hardest thing, in coaching? And I'd never been asked that before. And I told the story when I was in Vancouver and I got selected, and I said how I convinced my wife to marry me. As I said, I told her, if you marry me, I'm going to be an NHL coach. That wasn't true, but I said that in that meeting. Well, what I didn't tell her was that it was going to take me 25 years. Kind of left that part out. That's the process. How do you take that 25 years? And the good thing for me, that 25 years went by because it wasn't work. It wasn't work. It was fun. I enjoyed coming to the rink. If your athletes enjoy what they're doing, they will last so much longer. So much longer. And all those guys in that 400 club, Buddy Dorsett and Innes and all those guys that never got picked in the Bantam draft, how did they do it? They did it because they loved the game. They loved playing. And they believed. They believed. Dorsett. So Dorsett's dad, I was recruiting Dorsett out of Kindersley. And he's playing with his hometown, so he didn't really want to leave. So I talked to him and I said, okay, Dors, we'd like you to come to Medicine Hat. He got up to his dad the next day and he said, Dad, I don't think I'm going to go. I think I'm going to stay in Kindersley. His dad said, okay, son, it's a big decision. You better think about it again. So, fine. So, next morning, Doris gets up and tells his dad, no, I like it here. I'm going to stay. Dad goes, yeah, it's a pretty good opportunity. You really better go over it and think about it again. So it finally comes up and he says, okay, Dad, I think I'm going to go to Medicine Hat. And his dad said, okay, let's go. He believed that Doris could be a player. He believed that. Nobody else did, but he did. It was unbelievable how far he got. And I think you got to create the positive atmosphere in what you do. This is my last slide, and it's Plato's quote. Society cultivates whatever is honored, so let's make no mistake about what we honor. So what do you value? Like, we value hard work. Probably almost every video session we start with work ethic, and we show us working hard. That's what we show, because that's what we value. So that's what we reward. We show guys do it. As soon as guys do it, everybody starts snapping their fingers, and we reward that. That's how we get what we want to do, and that's important to us. So with that, I'll let you get to the real part. So I'm going to get, if you guys want to come up here, I'll introduce you when you get up, and then I'll ask you a few questions here as we go through. So closest to me, I got Ethan Newtons is with us last couple years, Schaefer Gordon Carroll, and Josh Van Mulligan. So these guys have been great players for us. They're good leaders. So guys, looking back in your hockey journey, what kind of coaching or home environment made you feel the most confident and feel free to play? So I just asked them to go down and they could comment. So, Newts, do you want to comment?
Can you guys hear me? Yeah. There we go. I think the environment that helps me kind of play to my full ability was, an environment that welcomed me, where I felt respected, trusted. Whether that was my friends, who had the ability to come over to my billet house or wherever I was living, or my billet parents that made me feel welcome, talked to me, were open and respectful of when I didn't want to talk, and just having coaches that respect and trust you, like honestly, there's not much to it. Just being able to have that and bounce questions off your coaches when they have an open door policy. I think that was the biggest thing for me. So.
Yeah, I'll add on a little bit. For me is belief. Having, Willie and the coaching staff believe in me. Like last year, I had a big moment in the Memorial Cup. Lindstrom got hurt against London, and I had to take over his spot. And, Willie had, honestly, probably not too much belief in me. Pretty tough to be a 16-year-old playing the Memorial Cup, but I had enough belief in myself that I could do it, and I earned his trust right after that. So yeah, for me is belief.
I think with that I did have belief, or we would have gone down to 11 forwards, so I did have some belief in you. Okay, when talking about rankings or drafts or pressure piling up on you, how do you stay focused and keep improving day to day? How do you quit not worrying about what's coming up?
Yeah, I think for me it's staying emotionally stable. I like to use the word neutral, not getting too high or getting too low. Like they said in the thing, you're not a thermostat. Just staying neutral. Because there's going to be highs and lows, so you gotta come back from them. And I feel like for me, the easiest way so I don't get too low on myself or having too much of a high is just knowing that there's a next step ahead. This isn't the end of the road. There's always another step. So.
Yeah, I think just like with that, like it can be overwhelming. Like there's obviously like good things can be said or bad things. So I think it's just every single day, like just coming ready to work and just taking it one day at a time. Can't look too much in like the bigger picture.
So players notice body language on the bench, in the room, even in the stands. What kinds of expression or energy from people around you help you stay focused and play your best?
Yeah, like I think for us, like it's like pretty positive. Like I think we play a lot better when there's a lot of energy and we're celebrating each other. Like I think when we do good things, we celebrate each other, and I think that just kind of encourages us to continue to do that.
So when you're going through a tough time, what kind of support hits home more? Somebody helping you, somebody breaking down the details of the game, somebody just believing you, somebody yelling at you? What kind of helps you the most when you're having a tough time?
Usually a kick in the rear end. But it also helps when somebody's able to break down video for you or whatever you need. And I think that's the most important part for me, is being able to have the resources to do that. So.
Yeah, the next question was just trusted. When somebody trusts you, and Shafecoin already answered that, where you got trusted in the Memorial Cup. What helped you rise to that moment? So why were you able to rise to that moment?
To be honest, it was probably the work I've done that entire year, and all the videos I did with Willie and the coaching staff. It was working in the D zone, trying not to get scored on, because I'm obviously playing against some of the best players in the world at that tournament. So, yeah, I'd say the way I believed in myself was all the work I put in before, that I rose to the moment because I knew I put the work in, and I deserved to take that spot.
Okay, Josh, this is a tough question. You got to come up with a good answer. Okay, after a game, has anyone ever asked you a question that really got you thinking or helped you learn something, rather than feeling judged or criticized? What was it, and what made it stick with you?
Yeah, that is a tough one.
You better say somebody said something right.
Yeah, like I think like for me, it's not always kind of like what's said, or it's kind of like how it's said. Like I think sometimes like maybe too critical after like a tough game or something. Like I think it's just kind of like phrasing it right, just so then I can kind of take it the right way, whether I'm like too high or too low kind of thing.
How does it, being seen as a player, as a person, it's always a tough one when you're judged just as a hockey player, because you're more than a hockey player. How do you handle that? How do you handle Ethan Newton's a hockey player? That's all you hear. How do you handle the person part of it as well?
That's kind of a tough one a little bit, but I think that when people take a more personable approach to asking you questions and all that stuff, you kind of open up a little bit, because there's way more to a person than what they display on the ice and what the other 4,000, 5,000 people see. And I think when somebody addresses that, or addresses the little things about how you got there, or the little things that keep you relevant, so to speak. I think those are the most important things. So.
Okay, I'll get you to all answer this one. Okay, for sure with me in that, you've had tough moments where I've been really hard on you at a time, and it's been hard because I'm usually hard on you when things aren't the best, but it's the same outside of that with parents or with other people. How do you find, what's the best way to, when something like that's happened, how have people gone about kind of getting over those situations and mending the fences?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I wanna learn, especially hockey-wise. Like my goal is to be in the NHL, obviously. So I want to be criticized, but I don't want to hear it all the time. And it's also a big part for me for hearing the criticism and then taking my part and fixing that criticism and doing my part and like not making that mistake again and learning from it. And yeah, for me is I want to learn. I just have to take it and then apply what the coach is trying to teach me. So, yeah.
Josh?
Yeah, I think for me, I think it's just like remembering that like whether it's Willie or my parents, that like they always want the best for me. So I can't like take it too hard. Is like they're telling me something because they know I can do better in something. So I think it's just kind of remembering that.
I think the best part about that is being challenged and being able to follow through with your solution, or being able to prove somebody wrong. I think being challenged and having to follow through with whatever it is, whether you need to go fight somebody or you need to I know there's no fighting in minor hockey, but just living up to that challenge and following through with it, I think is one of the best feelings. So I think that's a big driver for that.
One of the things that's really interesting for me, like when I coach and that, I'll have lots of people give me advice. There's lots of people that tell me I should be doing this on the power play or that or whatever. And you just kind of narrow it down to the people that you really, really trust. The other people you don't listen to very much. It comes down to who you trust. The other coaches, Rhonda, like those people are the ones. Now when they say something, you listen because it's different. So you can imagine if you're the parent, what you say is going to have a big, big impact. Because all the other people can say things, but they're not that person that's so close. That's the person that's so close, and that's the one they're going to hear. Everybody else can be saying all they want, but you only listen to a small group. Because if you listen to the whole group, you're all over the map. So I think it's the same with these guys. Like there's certain voices, and when that voice is really, really critical, it's really hard because they trust that voice a lot, and that hurts because there's nothing worse than trying your very, very best and it not being good enough. That is the worst. But what do you do? But that's when I talk about, well, there's more inside, so you try to get that. But we're dealing with, these guys are so elite, like they really are. Like what they do and how they do it, it's not like an 11-year-old or a 12-year-old. It's totally different with these guys. Eventually, maybe you get to that level, but you don't start at that level. Last one, guys, and all of you get the chance to answer it. Any advice for parents or supporters out there that you would have for them with young players?
for me, hockey isn't everything, but it is something. It's something that you can build a relationship with one of your kids. When I was growing up in Utah, there wasn't much hockey in Utah. So me and my dad, well, not me, my dad would drive me to Colorado from Utah every weekend, just so I can practice and play with a AAA team out there. And that really bonded me and my dad's relationship. Was car ride homes, him giving me advice and me listening. But yeah, it's more than just hockey. It's also time to build a relationship, do something you love together, and it builds a kid's character too. Like, I'm here playing with my buddies, my brothers. I've built my character through hockey, and it's also come through my parents and how they've taught me how to be a human being. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, I think just like my parents were just like super supportive for me. Like, no matter what it was, like they never had to force me to go to the rink. Like, that's just kind of always something I wanted to do. And like, no matter what sport or whatever I ended up doing, I think they would have supported me. And I think like that was just the biggest thing for me.
When Willie asked this question, the first thing that comes to mind was my dad and my parents. I'm pretty grateful to have them come to a lot of the games here in Medicine Hat. We live in Cochrane, so it's not too far of a drive. But sometimes after I come up to the concourse after a game, talk to my dad. You might not say a word about hockey. There's way more to it than hockey. And like I feel like if I went up and talked to him and all he was talking about was the game, I'd kind of just shut him out and maybe face the other direction. But it just keeps ringing in my mind that I'm really grateful that my dad is that supportive, and he's able to read my energy, or he can kind of read the situation based on how the game went, or if he wanted to talk to me about something that happened in the game, he would say it. But he's kind of always reading where I'm at, and reading how I'm feeling. So I think I'm super grateful for that, and I suggest that that's something that you guys look into and take towards your kids' hockey, or whatever it is, because I think that's a huge line of support for me. So
Thanks, guys, with that. I think the other thing too is there's people that just make our game better, that help us throughout. Like, there's parents, you have a lot of invested interest, but I know there's some SEAC people here in the crowd. I see the Sowers. I don't know if the Jason Van Mulligan's here. I don't know if any other guys, but it's really great what they've given to it, and they just give their time, and that's what's so important. And they're there. All they care about is the players and the kids, and that's what it's about. It's about people like that just really, really care about growth, because it's all about growth. It's about growth. It's not about the NHL. It's about growth. And sometimes that dream comes true. Sometimes it does. But there's so many more important things. It's the community. It's being able to give back. And so grateful for those people. And for everybody that came out tonight, it shows that you have an interest. You want to, I think curiosity is one of the biggest things to get where you want. So it's huge. But maybe, I don't know, maybe we'll take 2 or 3 questions. Somebody might have 2 or 3 questions for these guys up here. So if somebody has any question, then maybe you could just say it out loud and they can answer it.
repeat that. I think Shave's moved a little further, but it can be tough at times. But I get to FaceTime my parents, and they come to games all the time. So I'm grateful for that. But you find ways to adapt, and yeah, like it's not like hard. Like you're always gonna have like your friends, and you make close relationships with people everywhere you go. So I think that's super special to me, and it hasn't been hard. So.
Is there a difference between making your parents happy and your coaches
Oh man, Rhonda. You know, I do think there is, because for me, my dad is the biggest believer in me, and he sets so many high expectations for myself. But I feel like the median is for myself to feel the achievement in myself. I think that's the most important thing. Obviously, I want to do my best for Willie and my dad and my family and all the people that have gotten me to this point now. But just to know that I went out there and gave it my all. And, you know, if I do that, it'll, like it's set up here, like your achievements, like the little achievements, like the back check or the little stick lift, like you gotta applaud those things. And once Willie and my dad and family all know that I'm giving it 100% all the time, they respect it. So, yeah, that's all I got for you.
I think one comment on that too for parents. So I remember coming home, my son was 13 or 14, and I don't know if I was in the NHL then, but pretty high level probably. And I would say, son, you got to do it this way. And he would say, Dad, that's not what the coach told me. So as a parent, it just doesn't cut it sometimes. It was like, son, you know what I do for a living? He goes, that doesn't matter, Dad. So just so you know.
Willie, my question is for you. Who is your biggest influence in your work ethic and your dreams?
Well, it's your parents for sure. They're the ones that teach you how to work and what to do. You know, I was really lucky. I had a couple of really good mentors. Dave King was an unbelievable mentor. I wasn't even thinking about coaching. I went to university and I ran into him, and he loved winning. He loved to win. And he taught me a lot about it. And he also taught me that, you know, we'd go to Edmonton, I was in Saskatoon then, so the team would fly to Calgary and he would drive so we could get an extra player on the plane. And it was just his commitment. It just taught me a lot that, you know, how important that was. I also had another coach, Terry Johnson, that worked with me. And the coaches I went through were pretty hard coaches. And Terry, I'd go, Terry, this is what we're going to do. And he'd say, well, what do you think the players think about that? And I go, I don't know. I don't really care what they think about. This is what we're doing. And after about the fourth time he said it to me, it finally hit me that maybe I should care what the players think. But I went part of my career where I didn't listen. Now I listen to my players a lot. These guys put in so much to it. They put so much in that they deserve a say too. So those were a couple of people that made a big difference for me. Okay.
You guys all obviously left hometowns to get where you are. When did you know, like, how old were you when you realized that you were different than your peers around you, that you got that extra drive to succeed?
Yeah, I think for me, like, I didn't really have too much like expectations until kind of like my Bantam draft year, like Bantam second year. Like, I think that's when kind of you start to hear things and realize that junior hockey would even be a possibility, I think. And then now get to junior hockey, and now you're looking at kind of pro possibilities. So I think it's, I don't know, just kind of changing every year.
Yeah, for me, it was a little different. I feel like I had a chance to play at the Brick tournament, which is a pretty big tournament, even though I'm 8 years old. And that was one goal me and my dad set at the beginning of the year, was to make the Brick tournament at 8 years old. And I went out there, and I was the last cut to make it, so I didn't make it. And I had this really awesome talk with my dad that I still remember to this day. He sat me down, and he's like, kiddo, like, obviously I'm sobbing, like I'm crying, and I lost. I had a goal, and I didn't get it. He's like, kid, like, do you want to have them know that they were right for not choosing you? And my answer is no. So he said, okay, then you got to go out and go prove them wrong. and you gotta show them that they're wrong for choosing you. So ever since then, since I was 8 years old, my main focus has been to prove people wrong that have doubted me. So, and honestly, when I moved from the Utah hockey at 9 years old, driving from Utah to Colorado, I had a feeling that, you know, I was better than hockey in Utah. I can't say it's not good, trust me. So it's not good. But when I'd say about 11 years old is when I had that feeling that I had a chance to go play in the NHL, to be honest, was when I was that age. But obviously there's steps. You gotta play junior, you gotta finish AAA hockey, play junior, college potentially, and then the NHL. But that talk when I had with my dad is when I had a feeling, when I turned that mental switch on, that I'm a different human being. So.
That's pretty good.
So that's it.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you. A couple of big thank yous. Janae, thank you for your research and your wisdom and your expertise. That was a really cool presentation. Willie, man, what the heck? You brought some of us to tears. That was really inspiring. Unexpected talk. Supposed to be like all the Tigers. And gentlemen, thank you for your candor and your courage and your generosity tonight. I really appreciate your stories and your honesty and just, I mean, he was popping surprise questions on you. They weren't on the list. That was great. Thank you all for coming tonight. This is one part of our Heart and Home series on parenting information nights. We'll have a couple more. Keep an ear on Prairie Rose's social media feed for upcoming parent presentations. And have a great night. Thank you for coming.